Hello and welcome to today's Our Game show with myself, Michael Verney. Shane Stapleton is taking a day off. I think he's picked up a bit of an illness and they suffer from a bit of windiness down around his part. So he's convalescing at the minute, but delighted to have an able deputy in Jason Byrne from the Irish Sun. Jason, how are you?
Good, Mick. How's things?
You're laid up at the minute, Jason. You may give us a bit of background to how it happened. A fairly colourful story, shall we say the least.
Yeah, I was on honeymoon in Bali and I was in a bad jet ski accident. So back to the mechanic up, hopefully. That's the plan.
Now, have you talked to your manager? You have a rehab plan in place. You'll be back for championship.
Rehab plan in place. Yeah, well back for championship. Yeah, should be well away. Hope to be back running in straight lines in about 6 weeks.
Good stuff. If we're an inter-county manager, we just say you have a leg complaint or something like that. We'd be as vague in detail as possible.
As Peter Keane used to say, a bit of a leg injury.
You pushed him on that one time, actually. There was a couple of different players had leg injuries. You pushed him. The second question, what was his response?
He said, "Oh, they'll be grand. They'll be fine." James O'Donoghue's injuries were like he was one of the players, and his injuries were that bad he had to fucking retire. So it wasn't just a bit of a leg injury for poor old James.
Yeah, Peter Keane. Peter Keane was the king of the era. We've loads to get through, loads of club action, but plenty of bits of county business to get through as well. Jason, I know your ears would have been perked by Pat Gilroy's quotes about believing that outside managers in leading counties don't work. So just his quotes there, he just said he was talking to the Free State podcast. He said it doesn't work. The facts of the matter are, guys from outside their own counties, that there are a handful that have actually been successful in taking a team the whole way. Do they get them much better? 100%. Did Mick O'Dwyer get Kildare better? He did, very much so. What are your thoughts on that? Like, it depends on what you, I suppose, what you brand as success. If you look at, guys, outside managers that have won All-Irelands in recent years, there's not many. You're going back to John O'Mahony in Galway and you're going back to Michael Bond in Offaly, both, 25 years-ish ago. But if you're looking at provincial success, you're looking at, Davy Fitz in Wexford, Davy Fitz in Waterford, Mick O'Dwyer in Kildare. I'm sure that, Brian Mullins up in Derry, there are plenty. So I suppose a lot of it is what you brand as success.
Yeah, that's it. And John O'Mahony springs to mind as well. He won Connacht titles with 3 different counties. And Terry Hyland got Leitrim promoted from Division 4 a couple of years ago, and that was massive for them. And Rory Gallagher got Derry from Division 4 to Division 1. And look what Mickey Hart did with Louth as well before he did jump ship. So, fair enough for the Kerrys and the Dublins and that and the Corks. They'll never go for an outside manager, and that's just not going to happen. It just doesn't happen in those places, and they are the most successful counties. So it is unfair in terms of the outside manager to measure yourself against those counties in particular. But there are a lot of journeymen out there. We both know that, Mick. There's a lot of journeymen out there who are happy enough to go and collect the wages and whatever else. And
what wages? Sure, no wages.
I listened to that podcast Pat Gilroy was on, and Brawley said they were looking for the under the table payments, but they couldn't even find the tables. But there's plenty of those journeymen, but there is a lot of success stories out there as well, like that where managers have gone in and made a massive difference. What Davy did with Wexford is definitely the most recent example in hurling. And I know it kind of tailed off after that, but Jesus was there that day. They won Leinster at Croke Park against Kilkenny, and the place was absolutely rocking. It was class. I'll never forget it.
Even Liam Cattle as well in Waterford, taking them from the bottom of the barrel in Munster to an All-Ireland final, an All-Ireland semi-final, beating Galway, Kilkenny, Cork, beating nearly all of the big hitters apart from Limerick on the way. John Kwan just says there as well. Paddy at Westmeath, as well. You back-to-back years, you had Micko in 03 with Laois, which was unbelievable, something they hadn't achieved in a long time. And then Paddy the year later beating them, and of course, the grain of rice speech is one of the greatest speeches probably in the history of the GA. But I don't think I don't think you can just measure it as the pinnacle, because different counties have different goals. And yes, the Kerrys and we'll say the Tipperaries and the Kilkennys ultimately it's Sam Maguire or Liam McCarthy. But for all those other counties, and Adrian McGrath comes up with another great one here, John Mott and Clare in 92 as well. Do you know what I mean? Like it's what you measure success as, and success doesn't necessarily have to be silverware. Success is taking a county maybe that hasn't been competitive in the last while, getting them really competitive, getting them up a couple of divisions, we'll say, even like Terry Hyland did in Leitrim. So I'm not sure. I think Pat is speaking from a place of power, shall we say, in Dublin as well, where they don't, like, given the population base, they should never have to look outside of Dublin. And Kerry, given that, it's not a one-code county, but, definitely 99% of the focus is on football in the county, and they have a conveyor belt of managers coming. There's always going to be managers there. Generally in Tip, there's always going to be managers coming as well. But in smaller counties, like, looking at it, Louth, like, it was always going to be nearly impossible for Louth to go in-house. Like, if you look at Colin Kelly's probably one of their biggest managers. Wayne Kearns was the last one. Unless they go back to them, they're going to have to look outside as well. I do think it was interesting as well, because Joe Brawley has talked about the part he played in bringing Brian Mullins to Derry before as well, who obviously was an outside manager too. So he's kind of talking about both sides of his mouth. But Joe has a tendency to do that, as you well know also.
I know. Like, he was given out from high heavens when Rory Gallagher went to Derry as well, and when he won that first Ulster title, let's say Brawley was one of the first men out in the pitch, when they beat Donegal that day. So yeah, that tends to happen. But, like, just on the same point as well, like, you ask anyone in Wicklow who's on the Wicklow football panel at the minute, like Oisin McConville has totally transformed the culture down there, and in terms of what's expected, and like, it is all about measures of success. Do you know what I mean? Like, and like, they'll kick on a bit under him as well. And yeah, look what Kevin McStay done with Roscommon. Do you know what I mean? Like, that was massive as well. Like, they got to an All-Ireland quarter-final. Should have beaten Mayo in an All-Ireland quarter-final, and then got hockey then in a replay. Like, it just kind of all fell apart for them. But, like, they won a Connacht under him, and then they went on. That pretty much same squad went on to win another Connacht under Anthony Cunningham, who was another outside manager. Look at Davy Burke again, another outside manager. They were the only team that Dublin didn't beat in the 70 minutes of championship this year. So depends how you measure it.
Definitely. Adrian McGrath just says Justin McCarthy in Watford as well. Obviously, Davy in Watford too. Gerald McCarthy would have brought Corkman, obviously would have brought Watford on too. Donald O'Grady came to Limerick when Limerick were in a woeful spot after the strike, got things back, handed it over to John Allen, who won a Munster title with them in 13 as well. So, like, there's very few counties are immune to it. And realistically, if the personnel are not inside the county, you go outside the county. Just a comment that Peter Fitzpatrick made on the whole process. He said he wasn't impressed at all with the fact that Derry would approach somebody who's already in situ in a county and has another 2 years to serve. What are your own thoughts on that? Like, if you look at other sports, you're probably looking at massive sanctions for something like that. Like, if you talk to a player that's playing with, a professional football club, and you talk to him out of turn, shall we say, there's all sorts of legal action and things that can come in there. It's not generally the done thing in the GAA. Like, I can't think of too many examples of lads that were in situ somewhere, directly resigned from a job, and were immediately in another job. Liam Cattle in Waterford, going from Waterford to Tip would be one, but he did officially resign from Waterford, and then a couple of days later he was made Tip manager. What do you make of that? It's not generally the done thing to go for somebody who's in a position.
No, I remember the night the heart thing broke me, and you were texting, and we were trying to figure out when it did happen in the GAA. Like, I suppose, like, I'm a big Celtic supporter, and when Brendan Rodgers went to Leicester City that time in the middle of the season, that was a real high profile one, but Rodgers would have been given permission by Celtic for Leicester to talk to him. So, like, it's like, fair enough, soccer cross-channel and professional soccer worldwide's gone daft like that, but, like, in terms of the GAA, it's just not really the done thing. Like, it became apparent afterwards, I heard from someone in the Glen Club, a very reputable source, that Malachy O'Rourke obviously was their number one choice, but he straight up turned it down. He doesn't seem to have any interest in going back into inter-county management at the minute. He turned down approaches from Donegal last year, and I'm sure plenty of other counties as well. So he fairly laid out his cards fairly sharpish that he wasn't interested. So I was kind of surprised Kieran Meena didn't stay there. I know we're going to get on to him going to Armagh in a while, or not Armagh, sorry. Was it Armagh he went to?
Down,
sorry. You get mixed up with all these back movements there. Like
Conor Gilligan's gone to Armagh. Yeah.
That's where I got mixed up. So but yeah, like it just doesn't sit well. Like I remember texting my uncle from. I ended up writing about it in my column the next day. I was texting my uncle in Omagh, who would have been a stalwart in Omagh St Enda's for years, and he thought I was winding him up when I said Hart was going to Derry, like, and he could not believe it. Like, he was just absolutely horrified. I'd say he didn't sleep a wink that night. And then you saw like the tongue-in-cheek tweets from Owen Mulligan and all these boys, like, but there was a bit of meaning to them as well. Like, you know, a lot of people in Tyrone aren't happy, and Brawley's fairly aired his views on his opinion, like, but Hart's gone up there to win in All-Ireland. I know I'm going off on a tangent now, but in terms of the approach, no, the optics of it looked absolutely terrible. And the fact that we were getting into the end of September and Hart had already committed to staying with Louth and everything else, it just looked really, really, really bad. It did, and the timing of it, like, you know, if it had happened a month or two ago, maybe it wouldn't have looked as bad, but it still looks pretty bad. And it's just the approach by Derry and, you know, the optics around their county board at the minute don't look great. I know they'll be totally vindicated if they get success, but I don't know, it just doesn't sit right.
Just a couple of quick comments coming in there. Owen Scully, any thoughts on Laois Senior Hurling Championship final preview? Yeah, we'll have Laois star Ross King on at 1 o'clock. He'll go through that. He was obviously involved in the Rathdowney side. They were beaten by St. Nazarian's Abbey Leak, so he'll have some in-depth thoughts on that. And Major McGrath says as well, Kevin McStay is not an outside manager in Roscommon. No, a Mayo man, but living in Roscommon for a hell of a long time. I thought it was interesting. I managed to get my hands on Neil McManus the other day and just chatting a bit about retirement and stuff with Antrim, and he had a good cut at the All-Star Nomination Committee, who are, yeah, they get cut from time to time. And listen, it's no harm, because debate is basically the source of everything in the GA, and we love debating things. But I was just put it to him, like, did he feel hard done by that he hadn't got an All-Star nomination in his 17 years with Antrim? And he said not really, because he'd been on All-Star trips and things like that. But he made a point about who he thought should have been a nomination. He said, the most deserving Antrim hurler of the All-Star nomination in the past 20 years was Paddy Burke this year, and he wasn't nominated, which is a disgrace. It was shocking, to be honest. The two best defenders that came out of the Leinster Championship this year were Hugh Lawler and Paddy Burke. He would walk on to any team in the country. He said, who are going to be the All-Star full backline this year? Probably Hugh Lawler, Dan Morrissey, and either Barry Nash, Mikey Butler, or Mikey Casey. I wouldn't swap any of that full backline for Paddy Burke. Sean Finn is the standout defender of his generation. He's the best inside defender in Ireland. Outside of him, I wouldn't swap anyone for Paddy Burke. His performances this year were better than anyone else. Just looking, Jason, even at the counties that were nominated, I think 7 counties were nominated in hurling. I think 13 in football. Like, do we get totally blinded by finals and semi-finals now in the All-Stars? I don't know if that's really what they're about. Like, shouldn't we be rewarding someone who had a brilliant Leinster Championship campaign, or even a brilliant league campaign and had a good championship campaign? Are we getting totally blinded by the latter stages and kind of forgetting maybe what the whole system is about?
Yeah, it's definitely stacked towards huge recency bias, isn't it? Like, it's like how Neil McManus never even got nominated is just astounding. Like, it really, really is. Like he was up there with the very best. And, you know, I was talking to the great Sambo McNaughton only an hour ago on the phone to do a piece for tomorrow's paper about Casement Park, which we'll get on to in a while. But he obviously read your story this morning, and he aired his fairly stringent views on it as well. And it was interesting to hear that from him, given that he's one of Antrim's only All-Star holders, you know. But him
and Kieran Barr, I think maybe might be one more, but that's about the height of it.
Like, but he said straight out, like, that only for they got to that All-Ireland final that year against Tip, that he never would have been in an Asses roar of it. You know what I mean? Like, so it's funny, yeah, there is a lot of recency bias. Like, even a couple of the Dublin players from this year probably feel a bit more aggrieved. Like, you know, they did have a very good season given the massive transition that went on in the panel. And like Joe Fortune would tell you that probably he would have felt 3 or 4 of his players would have been in with a shout as well after what, you know, even though they ended up getting relegated after that great result against Wexford. I know you were at that one. Like, that day must have been surely up there with one of the highlights of the Ireland season. Like, that was just incredible.
And if you look at it, Jason, there's no remnants of that game in the All-Star selection at all. Like, there's no evidence
No.
that, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
Joe would have been adamant that Dara Egerton probably was his best player over the course of the season. Funny enough, he actually got black carded that day for 10 minutes. But he was brilliant when he was on the pitch. And again, yeah, I don't know. I just think we're veering away. I don't think necessarily having 14 Limerick players or 9 Clare players, 8 Kilkenny players is exactly what the system is about. I think we should be, and it's not tokenism or anything like that. I just think we should be rewarding players that are deserving, and particularly players that are playing in the shadows, maybe in the less glamorous type of games. But I just think that's what the system is all about. Jason, just quickly as well, just looks like John Kiley's going to be confirmed later this month as Limerick manager for an 8th season, keeping his stellar management team in place. Paul Kinnerk staying involved, Angus O'Brien, Alan Cunningham, Donal O'Grady. Like, you'd be mad to walk away.
They've added Lucas Kirstenstein as well, haven't they? Or no, he's
no, that's Clare. No, it's Clare. Yeah.
You get so mixed up with all these movers and shakers, but yeah, no surprise there for John. Like I remember even asking him 3 or 4 years ago, did he think he'd put in as long a shift as Cody would, and he said not a hope. But like he's going to be up there now. Is he the longest serving manager in hurling already? I think he is. Like so yeah, like the 5 in a row talk's going to be starting straight away, and he's going to hate that. He's going to absolutely hate that. I remember even someone asked him after the All-Ireland final, and the journalist was told to cop on. Like, I think it was one of the local lads who was just in a pure high after seeing them win before. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see how long he is there. Like it's hard. It's even hard to think of what it was like for Limerick before he was there. Like, even though it wasn't that long ago, and they just weren't challenging, and they just weren't in these conversations. Like, it's mad, like what he's done with them. Even how he's changed himself from a media point of view is massive. Like, I remember he used to be able to just ring him up, and when he finished school, and he would chat away to you, like, and he wouldn't even answer a text to you now. He's got us all blacklisted. But no, he's very good when he does sit there and talk to us. But the media engagement now with him is minimal compared to what it used to be. But that's just the way things have gone from our point of view. No one wants to hear us crying about that.
No, he'll always give you something when you do get him. The thing about longevity and staying on, I think it is always easier when you're winning. Like, they've won 5 of the last 6 years and 5 of the 7 years that he's been involved. I think it's more difficult when you're scrimping and scraping and trying to you know what I mean? Like, and there, to me, Limerick were as good in the second half of the All-Ireland final as at any stage over the past 6 years. So, like, you'd be mad to walk away, and like, this is a period that will probably never happen in Limerick again. So I'm not surprised that nobody is getting off the bus. You'd be mad to jump off it at this stage. Even the likes of Graham Mulcahy and that, who maybe people would have questioned a couple of years ago, like, he's still featuring in All-Ireland finals. Is he going to get off the treadmill? I wouldn't imagine so. There's not a hope of it, because you have a chance to. Like, he was going for a decade without any success. You're going to stay going as long as you possibly can until it all ends. And when it does end, chances are they'll probably come back and win another one after that, like the Dubs. And it'll be most people are probably sick of them at the moment. Then they'll lose, and it's like that redemption story, and we'll all go all in on that again. Because it's when people are winning, maybe you kind of get a bit sick of them. When they're down and look fallible, you want to see them kind of get on top again, apart from any Clare people or maybe from Kilkenny or anything like that. But I definitely get sucked into that type of thing. But yeah, Kylie's staying on for an 8th season. I think they're going to Barbados at the start of November. So they'll be well refreshed. We briefly talked about Mickey Hart and Louth. Ger Brennan getting the Louth job with a fairly star-studded back row team. I think he's Niall Moyna, who's experienced working under Pat Gilroy in Dublin. He's obviously heavily involved in DCU. Former down manager James McCartan, he's in as a forwards coach. Ex-Kildare player David White is involved as a selector/transitional coach, which I found was interesting. James Downey is high performance and culture coach, and Paula Flynn is listed as a sports psychologist. I don't know if you noticed in the Louth statement, it was quite hurried, but it did look like a lot of Ger Brennan's information was taken directly from Wikipedia and pasted onto a document. But that's another story. It's obviously a big gig for Ger, because he's been involved with Moorfield and involved with Bray Emmets and involved with Carlow under Niall Carew, but probably untested at county level. And it's kind of sink or swim at that level. They're Division 2 as well. He won't get much time to bed in, shall we say.
Yeah, that's it. And he's best of luck to him, and I'd be really rooting for him to do well with them. Like given the probably the sourness that's in the county from Mickey Hart's departure and how deflated the players must have been after getting up to Division 2 and nearly getting up to Division 1 and fucking getting to their first Leinster final since 2010. So I really hope he goes there and continues that upward trajectory. Like he played club football with a good buddy of mine in Donegal, Boston a few summers ago, and they didn't speak highly enough of him when he was out there. Like they said, what he brought to everyone out there was brilliant. Like, and he was a joy to be around off the field. Like, and he was great crack socially and everything else. So, like he's been working away, getting as much coaching know-how as he possibly could have in the last few years, and he would have learned a lot from all those gigs he was in over the last few years as well, especially those 2 seasons he was in with Niall and Carlo too. So I heard him loosely mentioned for the Leash job as well in recent weeks. I know he was linked to that too. So yeah, best of luck to him. Like, and you'd imagine from the north side of Dublin too, it'll be a handy enough spin up the road for him. He had plenty of college experience himself with UCD as well. And, the fact that Niall Boylan is in there, just a brilliant brain, all round, and what he'll bring to the table in terms of man management will be absolutely vital. Like Niall knows how to work brilliantly with young people in particular. So anyone who played Sigerson ball for him under DCU will all say that he had a massive effect on them in terms of the life lessons they learned on and off the field. So that was a very shrewd addition to that star-studded backroom team as well.
Just a quick one. You mentioned Laois there, obviously without a manager yet. Waterford without a manager yet. Tipperary without a manager yet. It's probably no coincidence that they're all, down in the bottom tiers. It's very difficult, isn't it, to try and, we're talking about outside managers. I'd say any of those counties would take your hand off for any sort of high-profile outside manager. It's hard to get positions filled, let alone get, a high-caliber individual.
Yeah, and you'd fear for Waterford there in particular. Like I know Aoife spoke to Paul Dollery in our paper, and he spoke to yourself as well a few weeks ago. Like that, if certain corners aren't turned in there, that they might even end up going the same way as Kilkenny football. And that's really, really worrying. They just it's very hard to come out of hurling shadow in counties like Waterford, but the likes of Tipperary and Clare have always managed to do that, and the likes of David Power and Colin Collins have built those foundations, and hopefully those counties can kick on again. But Waterford football just seems like a complete afterthought, and I totally get that football's the dominant force down there, but you see the Nair, and some of the clubs, they're just brilliant. Like Michael Ryan's managing them, and I think they're going for the 4 in a row football titles. So maybe Michael Ryan might be tempted to go in and take the reins. He's been on the road long enough. He knows what the gig entails. But yeah, you'd be really worried. It'd be a shame. You don't want to see counties really, really struggling like that either. I know
once you go, Jason, it's very hard to come back. Kilkenny are gone, and they're competing at junior level, which is, All Ireland played off over a weekend. Do you know what I mean? And I'm sure that they need up for 6 to 8 weeks maybe beforehand, if they even do. Once you go, you're gone, and it's very hard to get it back. And we can't be affording to lose anybody from, we've lost Kilkenny, we might never get them back. If you lose Waterford, who's to say you don't lose another county then in time? It's and same with hurling counties that are the likes of my own Offaly and a few others that have been competed at the higher level. You want as many teams as possible competitive, and I think the GA needs to do whatever possible to make sure the structures are in place in counties, to make sure that there's a conveyor belt of talent coming through, conveyor belt of coaches coming through, and not that, by all accounts, Aoife Fitzgerald was sprimping and scraping at different times. I think he'd 8 players for his first session. Now, it got a lot better after when he got moving and he got people on board, but still, he was pulling from some guys that couldn't make senior teams, or they're only playing maybe on junior teams or second teams and things like that. And that's kind of, once you go down to that, you're kind of struggling and you might never get back. But hopefully those positions will be filled and filled well in the coming weeks. Just Alan Cadigan announced his retirement, Jason, as well. I looking back and kind of amazing to think that he didn't get an all-star throughout his career, injury plagued. But geez, on his day, he was so dangerous. Like, I just immediately when I was thinking about, how would you describe his career or his style? He was just danger. Like, he's just, if the ball went in around him, just thinking if this guy gets the ball, he's so fleet-footed, he'd just kind of go around you. He was brilliant today against Kilkenny in 2019 in that quarter final, I think. He was very good. Horgan was brilliant the same day. He's only 30 years old, but I suppose injuries probably have a big part in it. Unfortunate, not that maybe we didn't see the best of him over the course of a decade through injuries.
Yeah, definitely, Mick. Like, he was a class player. Like, and I remember even in later years, like when he was coming in off the bench, like I remember covering so many Cork games thinking like, why didn't he start or why wasn't he in earlier? But maybe like the 70 minutes weren't in him and they would have preferred to have him on for the last 20 instead of the first 50 and having to take him off. That's probably what he was facing in the later stages of his career. Like, but center of gravity was so low as well. He could kind of turn in a sixpence like and just burn the corner back and pelt one over the bar. And creativity as well was such a huge string to his bow. I just loved watching him. Great fella as well. It's disappointing to see him retire now. But you feel like he's been around forever, but kind of you're like, oh God, he's gone now from the inter-county scene. Like, it's mad. But yeah, as you said too, probably would have been deserving in all-star conversations a few times over the years and never got one. Like, great guy, sad to see him go, and a lot of Cork people will be sad to see him go as well.
I think his retirement is probably the start of, there's going to be more retirements over the next couple of years. Like Patrick Horgan, Seamus Harnedy, Damien Callahan, probably over the next couple of years. There's a fair kind of changing of the guard going on under Pat Ryan in Cork. Just a quick one that broke yesterday, Jason. We just go on to the Donegal Football Championship then briefly. Just Charlie O'Burns has taken a year out with Armagh. It's obviously Kieran McGuinness's 10th season. There was a bit of a hoo-ha about whether he was going to be manager or not this year, and it went to the county board. He's obviously staying on as manager. But for a team that, were beaten on penalties in the Ulster final, beaten on penalties in the All-Ireland quarter-final by Monaghan, when you're looking for like inches everywhere, you can ill afford to be losing a lad like this, even if it is for a year. I believe he just said he needed a break and he's going to focus on club duty with Silverbridge. But, a real talented player, All-Star nomination in 2022. They need everybody realistically going into 2024. So it's a big loss even before a ball is kicked.
Yeah, definitely. And it did surprise me this summer as well, Mick. Maybe it was just the nature of the season, but he didn't start many games that I thought he would have started. Like, he was named to start in some matches, and then he was one of the late changes you would get 15 minutes before throwing or whatever. And that sort of surprised me. Like, I know he had one or two injuries throughout the year as well, but probably a lot of pressure on him too. Like, especially in the back of that All-Star nomination last year. And I was surprised by it, to be honest, given how close they have been and just the nature of those defeats, as you said, on penalties. Like, they're very, very tough to take, but that's how close they were to an All-Ireland semi-final this year. I think they hadn't been in one since 2005 or 2007. They hadn't won Ulster since 2008, which is mad when you think about it. Like, this year was their first Ulster final since 2008. And they were just nearly really, really knocking on that door, and to lose that in penalties was a killer. Like, but then Geezer staying on and Kieran Donaghy staying on, and like Colin McGilligan's a huge addition there as a coach, and it'd be a real feel good factor around Armagh when Jared Senior takes the big chair in Croke Park too. Like, so yeah, it's an interesting one. I was very surprised. Like, and given that they have everybody, they had everyone else back this year. Like, like Rian O'Neill recovered from injury and everything else. Like, it's tough for them. Like, but the pressure that's on young players these days, we see it there with Austin Gleeson. Sometimes a break can do players the world of good, and hopefully he'll be back hungrier than ever a year later, or as soon as possible.
With the aforementioned Ian McManus, I'm delighted to hear he's getting a send-off that he deserves of some sort anyway. It's just announced today that Neil McManus will captain the Irish team for the upcoming Hurling-Shinty International against Scotland in Newry. And when you go down through the squad, it's great to see the various counties involved. Niall Arthur, Monaghan, Mickey Joe Egan, Roscommon, David Fitzgerald, Clare, Peter Duggan, Clare, Andrew Gilson and Kavanagh, Wicklow, Killian Kiley, Offaly, Owen Cattle from Offaly, my own club of Burt, which is great to see. Fiona Mackesy, Kerry, Luca McCusker, Fermanagh, Neil McManus, Antrim, Chris Nolan, Carlow, Ryan Mullaney, Stephen Pickymar, Paddy Purcell, and Enda Rowland, all from Laois. Keelan Taggart, Down, Porrick Walsh, Kilkenny, Ger Mellerick, Cork, Rob Downey, Cork, and Tom Monaghan from Craughwell. So great to see that Neil is getting a send-off of sorts. He didn't get the All-Star nomination, but good to see him involved there. Just a quick one on the Donegal Championship. And before we even get to the Donegal Championship, don't think I've been chatting to you since Jim McGuinness. It was announced that Jim McGuinness was coming back. What's it been like since? There was obviously an unbelievable amount of hype around his appointment and, you know, Jimmy coming back and that. Have you heard much in the background about what's been happening, various personnel that might be involved in the extended backroom team, possible players that might come out of retirement that sponsor the Senior Football Championship? Have you heard any bits and pieces about what's going on, meetings or anything like that? Or because I'd imagine he'd be fairly keen to hit the ground running. He doesn't sound like the sort of lad, or even from reading his book, it doesn't sound like the sort of lad he's going to wait till the end of October to get things moving. I'd say he's well moving already. Actually, there was pictures of him at club games not too long ago, but have you heard much about what's going on?
Well, I believe he's been turning up at club games left, right and centre at all levels throughout the club championship. They're going on a week-long training camp. That was announced at a county board committee meeting last night. I think they're going away in a 1 week training camp. Now, it hasn't been specified if that camp is taking place in Ireland or abroad, but the big thing in the background that Jim is going to bring to this job is the fact that the backers, in terms of finances, are going to come back to the table in a big way. And he did have that in his last term in charge, and that was a massive, massive difference. So that's going to be huge. Because the appeal for sponsors definitely would have waned significantly in the last year or so in terms of Donegal football, with everything that was going on between the academy and, the pickles that the senior team found themselves in this year between getting relegated.
Pickles is being kind, I'd say, Jason.
Being generous there. But so just to have him back on board, it's really gonna, he'll bring some of those players that look like 5 out of 10 players this year up to 7 and 8 out of 10 next year when he gets to work with them over the next few months. I'd say by the end of the league, hopefully we'll be looking at a very different Donegal squad that took to the field in the championship against Down this year when they were soundly beaten in Newry. I can't wait to see what happens. It could be, at the end of the day, it's going to take a lot of work to get that squad challenging again, but the tools are there. There's a great spine of the team there. Really excited about what Oisin Gallen can do with Jim working with him. He's top scorer in the club championship. He had a magnificent year for the county this year. He was one of the really bright sparks in the team, despite a lot of the dark days. He was nominated for an All-Star. Brent McCole nominated for an All-Star too when we thought Neil McGee was never going to be replaced. And of course, Neil is in that backroom team with Colin McFadden as well. And even next year, when you see a lot of the coaches from Donegal dotted around other counties, like Paul Durkin was with Sligo, Mark McHughes with Roscommon. I wouldn't be surprised if some of these other boys came floating back, maybe not for next year, but for 2025. The whole thing, hopefully he'll just get a massive lift from him being there, and hopefully we see a lot of fresh faces in there next year too to kind of stake their claim. There's nobody kind of standard at the minute in terms of who you'd be talking about in terms of retirement. Hopefully Paddy McBurdy can stay fit. By all accounts, he's going to remain as captain. Hopefully Ryan McHugh's back. Jim was pictured standing beside him at a club match in Glenties a couple of weeks ago, so I'm sure he'll be back on board as well. So there's lots to look forward to. I just can't wait to see what happens. Rome wasn't built in a day. People have to remember that this isn't 2011 anymore. Jim hasn't got the same squad. He hasn't got a Carl Lacey. He hasn't got a Neil McGee, and he hasn't got a Michael Murphy. And I don't think he'll come back. Michael's getting married soon. He's building a house. He's still doing monstrous stuff with his club. And, he's very busy with work in Letterkenny IT and running the sports shops as well. So, everyone thought he would never retire, but he did. But I really do think his decision has been made. And I think the next place we'll see Michael Murphy with the Donegal badge in his chest might be standing in a dugout beside Jim McGuinness down the line, or in that Bannister bib someday down the line, which he has said is a distinct possibility in the future, but just not now.
It's funny we're talking about Michael Murphy and even standing beside Ryan McHugh. There was a great story of a local club manager who was trying to coax a fella back out of not even retirement. He just stepped away for a year or two, and he really needed him. He was a goalkeeper and a very good goalkeeper, and like he couldn't get him back. But every couple of weeks, like he'd nearly land to the house and pop his head over the ditch while your man was cutting the lawn and just kind of cracking. He eventually got him back anyway, and they ended up winning the county. They ended up winning the county championship after. But it's funny, there are definitely certain managers on the club scene, and when they go to a club, and I think it's due diligence, and you do your best to. Everyone that hasn't hurled the last couple of years that can add something, you go and try and get them all back. You try and pull lads back out of retirement, and if they don't come back, they don't come back. But you kind of leave the door open for them, or you try and get a fella back from Dubai or get a fella back from the States or whatever. So it will be fascinating to see. I'd be the same as yourself. I think once Murphy has shut the door, he's shut the door. But would I be that surprised if he ended up as a coach for 2025 even, or 2026? I wouldn't be that surprised at all. And I think me and you have a little side bet. I think I was saying he'd be Donegal manager in 2027 or something like that. So he could be in under McGuinness and then take it on from him. But just on the semi-finals this weekend, obviously Michael Murphy sponsors the Donegal Senior Football Championship that he plays in. But Glenswilly were beaten by Sean McCool's in the quarter-final last day, as you said, and Oisin Gallen inspired Sean McCool's. They play Guidor this weekend, and obviously the other semi-final is Naomh Connell against St. Eunan's Letterkenny, who are managed by Rory Kavanagh, who is also in the mix for the Donegal job, and you could say potentially could yet come in as a coach. Who knows? How do you see those semi-finals going? Who'd be the favourite out of four to lift Donegal honours this year?
Well, a lot of people would say that the big two is in that semi-final between St. Eunan's and Naomh Connell. No love lost between these two whatsoever. A couple of years ago there was a big four, and that would have been Guidor, St. Eunan's, Naomh Connell and Clare. Clare have kind of gone back a bit. Naomh Connell taught them a fair lesson in the quarterfinals at the weekend. But there's great stories in the championship have been like McCool's coming through to a semi-final, and Guidor's resurgence a bit as well to come back to the semi-final. Ardra played a brilliant quarter-final against Guidor as well. And, a lot of people are talking about Carl Joseph Malloy, who's second top scorer in the championship. And, he'll definitely be in Jim McGuinness's radar for next season. The clues in the surname, he's Anthony's nephew. Wonderful, wonderful footballer. His brother John Ross was in the county squad this year and last year, of course, as well. So, he looks like a great young talent. The scores in some of the games have been through the roof, Mick. Donegal club football has been rightly sneered at for a long time in terms of defensive tactics and that, but there was 8 goals in that Ardra Guidor game. Just crazy. And some of the scores that have been racked up, and then Glenty's got 4 goals against Kilcar. So there's a real feel good factor around Donegal football at the minute, and a lot of that's come from the nature of football that's been played in the club championships as well. I saw John Harron pontificating about it yesterday too, and he's very happy with what he sees, and John's well clued in terms of the club scene in Donegal, a big St. Eunan's legend, of course, but that's bringing big crowds to the games as well. And the Sean McCool's journey in particular is fascinating. They'll be delighted at that draw. They'll really fancy getting to a final, and they're playing on their home ground as well in Ballbofay. But all eyes are on the other one really. St. Eunan's will be seething with the nature of how they lost against Naomh Connell in the final last year.
Just give a bit of context to that, Jason. That was a mad kind of sequence of events last year.
Yeah, it was there was huge anger from St. Eunan's in terms of the refereeing decision that saw Niall O'Donnell sent off, and there was a huge fallout from it. Val Daly was the linesman, and he called the referee over to say there was a red card when there clearly wasn't a red card. There was just a bit of scuffling off the ball, and that really was the turning point in the game. And apparently that moment led to the domino effect, which saw Rory Kavanagh pulled out of the Donegal job. They were that furious.
Really? Okay. Yeah, I hadn't actually realised that. Yeah.
A lot of that's yet to come to the surface. But it seemed to be the straw that broke the camel's back when Rory was being lined up for the job, but he's refused to comment on any of that stuff. But, by all accounts, that's kind of what happened, which is an awful shame. St. Eunan's were robbed by a terrible refereeing decision. There's no two ways about it. Naomh Connell are a brilliant side. You can't take anything away from them either. Anthony Thompson and Leo McClune and one or two of their other, Owen Wade, I think, as well. We're all honoured there at the weekend for their quarter-final win against Clare. I think it was their 100th appearance for the club. I think that's phenomenal. Like, you know, like all those boys have been going a long time and they've just been phenomenal servants, and they're still absolute machines at club level. But like the panel St. Eunan's have and the hunger for revenge they'll have after last year will be absolutely massive. So I wouldn't be surprised if they scrape through by just a point or two. But you can't just do not know when to die. They remind me of Dublin under Jim Gavin. You can throw anything you want at them, they'll know how to react and handle it. So it's very, very hard to call. Like most people would say, whoever come out of that game will win the Dr. Maguire. But you know, McCool's and Gidor will love the fact that there's no attention on them. Both clubs have nothing to lose. Or McGuinness is back playing great stuff for Gidor as well. The likes of Cassidy and a few of the older heads have moved on, but the McGees and all are still going strong. So that game can go either way too. But I fancy McCool's just based on the fact that Oisín Gallen seems unstoppable at the moment, and his form alone should just put them in the final.
I wonder, is Ronnie Hope and McNeilish been coaxed back into the county fold under McGuinness?
Yeah. It's another one. Still great potential there. Phenomenal player when he came on the scene under Jim, especially in 2014. It was just fantastic that summer, you know. But great to see him back in a Donegal jersey. When he did come back a couple of years ago under Bonner, there was huge hopes, but then he was gone again. But like, it's common knowledge that Owen's a bit of a free spirit away from the field. So, you know, unless he absolutely wants to do it, I wouldn't say he'll be there.
This question from Traumspieler has come in, and the right person to be asking. I'll just fly through these 4 comments and then we'll discuss it. He says, Michael Murphy, the best all-round footballer there has ever been. Could do it all. Left foot, right foot, catch overhead, freeze off ground or from hand, impeccable discipline, born leader, discuss. River Power just comes in. Freakishly strong too. Very good reader to play. P-Well74 chimes in. Murphy built like a man at 18. Super player and leader. Yeah, the man-child when he was playing with DCU. He's only 18, 19. Traumspieler just adds in as well. Yeah, Murphy was unreal. Maybe Anthony Toll had a comparable skill set. Another incredible player. Just to discuss the initial comment, like, is he the best all-round footballer of all time when it's all told, when you take in nearly every possible skill of the game, leadership, bottle, he's the total package, really, wasn't he?
Oh, absolutely. Like, you saw the impact his departure had in that Donegal dressing room. Like that shadow will never be filled. Like, you know, I'd be good friends with Brendan Benny, and he'll always tell you the best 2 footballers in Donegal would be Michael Murphy. If you split him in 2, he'd be 1 and 2. You know, like those great moments are what he'll be remembered for, like the 2012 All-Ireland final. Like, but I often think of his dink on the ball in the 2011 quarter-final when he laid the pass off to Cassidy to score that monstrous point to win the game. Like, that's what I often think of when he came out and just dinked it up, difficult conditions, everything on the line at Croke Park. And what he's done at club level too, he's just absolutely torn teams to shreds. Like we came up against him in the 2013 county final, and he just annihilated us. Like, you know, our best man marker, Jason Notter, had been on the county panel with him, like, and just J.O. couldn't deal with him, you know. Like, nobody really could. Just an absolute machine. And like the devastation in the county when he announced his retirement was really, really something else. Like, you know, it was a real house parade kind of stuff. But I've no doubt he will be back on the sideline and be that leader again in a much different capacity. But yeah, in terms of the greatest of all time, like someone in Kerry might have something to say about that, but as an all-rounder, like, he's definitely up there, you know.
And just the last question, I'll leave you go on this when we talked about McGuinness and Donegal. What's the ceiling this time around, do you think? Like, what's realistic under McGuinness this time? Is an All-Ireland realistic in a few years, or does he have the raw materials? Or, like, we're talking about outside managers coming in and what is branded as success. Like, is winning an Ulster title over the next 3 years a success?
I think his first main objective will be an Ulster title. I think he'll go all out to do that and build from there. I think if he was to do that in 2024, anything that came after that would be absolute bonus territory. But I think that will be his first target. I think that will be target number 1. Given the nature of the championship and the format and everything else, obviously the other provincials two of them are basically sewn up, you know. Connacht, still 2-horse race, maybe 3 with Roscommon. Definitely 3 with Roscommon, actually. But Ulster still means the world to every player in every single county there. So I think that'll be Jim's first target. And in terms of 2024, whatever comes after that will be bonus territory. You know, an All-Ireland quarter-final maybe. If they got a good draw, they could get to a semi. But I think 2024 will just be win an Ulster title. Whatever happens after that happens. And then he'll already be looking to 2025. And then maybe bringing things on to the next step. But he doesn't have the panel he had 10 years ago. He doesn't. He still has some great players. The own two club men, Owen Ban, Hugh McFadden, Sean Patton, wonderful goalkeeper, McCall, Oisin Gallen. A few of these young players coming through now as well. Hopefully they can all make an impact. Ryan McHugh coming back. Paddy McBurdy these days fit can be so good. So a lot of the raw materials are there, but he doesn't have that squad he had 10 years ago. So it'll be interesting. Ulster title in 2024 will be target number 1, I'd say, and bonus territory after that.
Ulster Championship 2024 featuring Jim McGuinness, Mickey Hart, Conor Laverty. Who else are we talking here? Vinnie Corey, Kieran McGeeney. Yeah, it's not bad now. In fairness, it won't lack for appetite anyway. There'll be plenty of bite to say the least. Jason, thanks very much. You've been brilliant with your time. You can read all of Jason's pieces in the Irish Sun. And Jason, no doubt we'll talk again soon. All right.
Thanks, Michael. Take care.
Cheers, Jason. Good man. Talk soon. We'll just get back into it. There's obviously lots of club action this weekend. Probably a quieter hurling week this weekend than normal, maybe. But still plenty of good stories, and we'll get into them all. Interesting one in Tipperary, where former Tipperary midfielder Conor Gleeson has confirmed that he will step aside as Golden Kilfeacle coach for Sunday week's county intermediate final against his own Boherla and Douala. So, by all accounts, in a last-ditch attempt to avoid relegation, the former Laois and Offaly coach agreed to take over the West Tipperary club in late August, but with one condition: if they face his club, he would not be involved. I know they say if you enlist, you must soldier, but if the one caveat was that you don't, that you're not going to be on the line if you play your own club, and you said that at the start, I think that's fair enough. And listen, he's not going to be a loser. He's not going to be a loser either way, but it obviously sounds like it would be very, very difficult for him to face off against his own Boherla and Douala. He was obviously captain of Tipperary in 97 as well. So he just said to the Examiner during the week, I said to them before I came on board that if they faced Boherla and Douala, I'd step aside. My mother, Pauline, wouldn't have slept a wink if I didn't. With a county final, there would be extra attention to, and I just wouldn't have been able to do the lads justice preparing them. I just couldn't put myself in that situation. I know a good few of the Golden Kilfeacle lads like Kevin Maloney and the chairman, Brian Leamy. In fairness, they accept the situation. They knew where I stood. It's been a great run to this point. We beat Drummond by 13 points in the quarter-final and weren't expected to come through against Kilsheed and Kilcash. Nobody was giving us a chance, but the final is there now. Just fly through a couple of quick ones. The Offaly Senior Camogie final is this weekend in Grant Heaton, St. Brendan's Park. It's an interesting clash between the holders Burr against their near neighbours St. Killian's, who are across the border in Tipperary and actually have a couple of girls involved with various Tipperary squads as well. That's going to be an interesting one on Sunday in Brendan's Park in Burr. There's obviously county semi-finals in Clare this weekend. 4 relatively new faces, well, given in the last decade anyway, in the last 4, all vying for a final place. On Saturday evening, it's Scariff against Crusheen. So Scariff will be hoping to bridge a 28-year gap this weekend since their last appearance in the Clare Senior Hurling final. The East Clare side carrying an unbeaten record into the contest have been really, really impressive to this point. Beat Clooney Quinn after extra time in the last 8. They face a Crusheen side who upset the odds to beat Newmarket last time out. I think it was a hat-trick of goals in the first half. Crusheen are looking to reach their first final since 2011. Aidan Hart is heavily involved with Crusheen as coach. The interesting one is whether Crusheen can handle Mark Rogers, who fired 312 the last day, has been putting up crazy tallies. He's actually had an unbelievable year all told. When you take in Fitzgibbon, all he's done with Clare and all he's done with Scariff now, that's going to be really interesting. I find the last 4 in Clare very, very difficult to call at this stage. The other semi-final is on Sunday. It is Clonlara versus Feakle. Feakle last won it in 1988 when Gerlach Nam was involved, the great Ger. Interesting to see who will handle John Conlon. He's obviously playing up in attack. He was very, very good, scored 5 from play when Clonlara beat Ennis, Aero Guinness 114 to 14 points in the last 8, and Clonlara were the last team to win it in 2008. Presume that's pronounced Creator or Creature. Keane Dillon will have a tough day on Rogers. Yeah, it'd be interesting to see if Keane picks him up or whether they go with maybe a younger, maybe kind of nippier player. Keane, very, very solid player with Clare back in the day, and even obviously at club level with Crusheen as well. They're two fascinating semi-finals. Interesting result last night actually in the Clare Senior B semi-final. It finished Ballyea 323, 6 Mile Bridge 122. And just reading a tweet from Derek Lynch at Clare FM, just said this year's Senior B final will either be a repeat of the 2021 Senior A decider between Ballyea and Ina Kilnamona, or the 2018 version between Ballyea and Cratloe. Like, it's mad just how the year has gone kind of not pear-shaped. I suppose you have to say pear-shaped, but it's just a lot of regular A faces in the B Championship and maybe some regular B faces in the A Championship. So massive opportunity for the 4 teams involved in the Clare semi-finals, and we follow them very, very closely. Very big game in Kilkenny as well. Erin's own Castlecomer against Danesfort. So Danesfort only won the intermediate last year, and now they're looking to keep their senior status. They were very competitive against Ballyhale actually in that relegation semi-final / preliminary quarter-final. They were only beaten by 8 points. Ballyhale obviously showed very good form then against Dixborough in the quarter-final. Comer have been poor to this point, and I believe Conor Fogarty is going to be out as well. So that would probably, providing Richie Hogan is fit, that would probably tip the scales, you'd have to say, in the favour of Danesfort. We'll go into the Laois final in a couple of minutes when I'm joined by Ross King, but we'll just chat a small bit about the Westmeath final. So a novel enough pair in here. Well, novel from one side anyway. Loughlin Gales facing off against Raharney. So Derek McGuinness scored a late goal to hand Loughlin Gales a dramatic and shock 116 to 115 victory over Castletowngeoghegan, who were the holders 2 weeks ago. They haven't been in a county final in a while. McNicholas, obviously, who's recently retired from the county scene, he's still a massive player at club level. Obviously, they have Tommy Jogger Doyle, who was over in the States for the summer and would be widely regarded as one of the best county defenders in the country. He's up centre forward, and rising star Shane Williams, he had 10 points in the semi-final, and he'll be expected to put up a big score again at the weekend. Probably still favouring Raharney there. They've been there and done it in recent years, so probably just about tip the balance in their favour. Richard Hogan just says senior relegation final in Kilkenny this weekend, along with intermediate semi-finals on Sunday. Yeah, a big weekend. No senior knockout fixture, shall we say, as in semi-finals there on Sunday week, but still plenty of interest this weekend. In Tyrone, we have the senior hurling final this weekend. It's Dungannon Owen Rua against Carrickmore. Fly through a few football fixtures as well before we come back to Laois. Kildare semi-finals this weekend. Selbridge against the tie. So Selbridge are currently installed as second favourites to lift the title, and that in itself is hardly a surprise. They've been really impressive up until this point, and they were obviously they were on what was seen as maybe the softer side of the draw, but they've been very, very impressive. They're coming up against a tie side who come in a somewhat similar vein, very impressive at times, maybe less so on other occasions. But overall, manager Vinnie Walsh can be more than happy where his team are at the minute. The other semi-final is Naas against Clane. Naas are obviously waited a long time to get their hands on silverware. Now they've done back-to-back. They're heavy favourites to win it out again, and rightfully so. We're in the Leinster final a couple of years ago. This is a repeat of last year's county final. So Clane will certainly be out for revenge after last season's defeat. No doubt they got their tactics all wrong in that final, and they had played quite defensive up until that point. But Naas were just able to pick holes in them, and I'm sure Tom Cribben he'll be keen to make sure that he doesn't make that mistake again. The return of Brian McLaughlin is a massive boost. The Dublin Senior Football Championship semi-finals this weekend as well. So Kilmacud Crokes, obviously reigning All-Ireland champions, coming up against surprise packets Raheny. Raheny are missing Brian Howard, obviously, who's probably going to get an all-star at the end of the year, hugely influential for the Dubs. They have got Rob Henley, who has been pitching in really well with long range frees. Just he's the weapon that he was bringing to Briefy and Mayo. He's basically bringing it to Raheny now, and he's been crucial in their run to the last four. Obviously, you have Brian Howard as well, who's in the running to be Footballer of the Year for a third time, which would be extraordinary, really. And he's only lost 2 championship games throughout his Dublin career. They're really going to be up against Kilmacud Crokes, though, who have kind of looked like they've only been in third gear to this point. They haven't really been that impressive, but they're kind of they're all dogs when it comes to, delivering at the most important times, and I'm sure they'll be primed to deliver this weekend and potentially in the final thereafter as well. The other side of the draw sees St. Jude's against Ballyboden and St. Enda's. So they're near neighbours in around Furhouse, Knockline. They're practically up on top of each other. Fogs will be in there as well. All those clubs within a stone's throw of each other. For Jude's, Dara Rooney hit an impressive 1-7, 6 points from frees, while Tom Lahiff also found the net as St. Jude's kept their championship hopes alive the last day against Coola. That was a really good win against Coola, to be fair. But there's just something about Ballyboden. They've been beaten by double figures in the last 2 semi-finals. Look like they really have the bit between their teeth this year, and I'd be expecting Ballyboden to come through that one. It won't be. It should be a tight enough game, but I would be expecting them to come through it. In Sligo, then we have the championship semi-finals as well. Drumcliff Ross's Point against St. Militia Gales, and Coolera Strandhill against St. Mary's. So the door is ajar in Sligo, you'd have to say, with the 8 in a row chasing Tour de Strand out. So one of those 4 are going to put their foot through the door, no doubt, over the coming weeks. Richard Hogan just says, very interesting junior finals too. Dixborough versus James Stevens in Section B. The Village have Jackie and Owen Arkin in the starting 15. There's a lot of junior sides. It'd give anything to have those 2 guys still playing. David Walton, former senior, in there as well. Borough will be strong, but just like that, the Village to reverse last year's defeat, so they obviously met last year. In the Cavan Senior Football Championship, down at semi-final stage as well, Kings Court Stars against Rammer United, and we've Crossterlock against Gowna. In Tipperary, we're at the semi-final stages as well. Clonmel Commercials, who have Ushi McConville involved in their backroom team as an advisor this year. Not sure how much if he's down in Clonmel much, or whether he's just advising from the background. Obviously, the current Wicklow manager, and one of the wisest heads in the Gaelic football world at the moment. They're playing Mile Rovers, and the other semi-final is Jacob Brackens against Upper Church Strumban. This has an added spice to it in the fact that they will actually play each other in the relegation hurling final next week. So it'd be a nice one to get one up on a team and then get 2 up on them and book a place in the senior football final and save your senior hurling status. So they're very, very interesting semi-finals over the weekend as well. We just will fly on to, I think we have Ross King in the background here, so hopefully we'll be able to add Ross in here. Ross, how are you getting on?
Michael. Good. And how are you getting on?
Grand leather seats in that car. You're earning a good wage, I'd say.
Yeah, I won't talk to the revenue man about that just yet.
Good man. Thanks a million for joining us. Obviously, the Laois final this weekend. We'll talk about the 2 teams involved in a second. From your own point of view, never simple the week or 10 days after when you're knocked out of a championship. It's always it's kind of house private for 10 days after, really, isn't it? It's kind of a sickener. You're always hoping that you're going to get on a run and hoping it's going to be your year. So what have the last week or 10 days been like?
Yeah, to be honest, this is our 4th year in a row losing 4 semi-finals in a row. So it's actually been the hardest one for me personally. Anyway, I don't know what the rest of them are like because we barely spoke, I suppose, since. But it's hard, yeah. It's very hard. So I just booking flights, to be honest with you, trying to take the mind off it and trying to grieve it in your own little way, but it's difficult, yeah.
You have to kind of make the best of a bad situation. I remember years ago, it's 5 years ago now, we were beaten in a quarter-final. Borough were beaten in a quarter-final. I said, geez, how am I going to get over this? So McGregor was fighting in Vegas about 3 weeks later, and it was my birthday weekend as well. I says, I'm getting accreditation for that, and I'm going covering that, and I'm going to go and gamble for 5 days and enjoy myself. But you have to kind of take it, whatever. There's not much of a silver lining, but you kind of have to take it and find it, don't you?
Yeah, that's it. If I started gambling, there wouldn't be leather seats under my arse right now. So I'll avoid Vegas. So I'm actually going to London tomorrow. So that's my plan. I'm trying to get tickets to the Arsenal City match with my girlfriend there and going tomorrow just to get away for the weekend and kind of take her head out of Laois, I suppose, because I live at home in Rathdowney, so you're kind of consumed by hurling all year round. So just want to take myself out of it for the weekend. So that's my plan. It's no Vegas, but it'll do me.
You were a tasty enough soccer player back in the day. I remember someone telling me, are you the first or the only person to get scholarship to UCD for soccer and hurling?
Well, if there's another one, I'd be very surprised, to be honest with you. And I'd tell you one thing, there's no one that went on FIFA and got a hurling or Laois championship county final in the 1 year. That's for sure anyway. I don't know about the scholarship bit. But yeah, that was a rarity. But went up in a soccer scholarship and ended on a hurling one. So had great times up there.
Yeah, Jesus, that's a fair achievement in itself, all right. Just to look at the county final at the weekend, St. Nazarian's Abbey Leaks coming up against Camross. Just talk me through your own game with Abbey Leaks. I think he came from 7 down to force extra time. You probably would have been, probably would have more experience at that stage than them. It took a fair bit from them to kick on and win even in extra time, because he probably had the experience of county finals wins maybe that they don't, but by all accounts they seem to have a hell of a lot of young fellas that have won nearly everything the whole way up, and a backbone on the side with the likes of Enda Rowland as well.
Yeah, and just to go back to the match itself, they were actually 10 up in the second half and we just got it back by a bit of luck and we had to win and we got a few goals, but justified winners so there. And it's no surprise to anyone in Laois that they're beginning to see some success. Like their minors are in a final just before their seniors on Sunday as well. And that's going on for the last 5 to 8 years as well. Under 20s, you'd see all the underage Laois teams would be fairly littered with Abbey Leaks players as well. So it's no surprise to people in Laois that it's coming. They've been knocking on the door a few years. And then, as you say, Enda Rowland is there. You have Oisin Carroll fullback. He's an excellent fullback, one of the best fullbacks in Laois there for the last 10 years. So they have 2 really good leaders there, right at the heart of their team. And then like Owen Fennelly and that their years, but they're going to drive on forward. They're probably a bit like Kilcormac will be in Offaly. I think Michael, they have a serious backbone of players in the next 5 years. I think them and the Harps will probably be nearly the strongest 2 teams in Laois. So there's going to be a change in Laois, I think, in the next 5 or 6 years, because the strongest underage teams are going to come through to the senior teams, and that's what we're seeing with Abbey Leaks today. But I think it's their first time in 72 years. I drove through Abbey Leaks the other day and littered with flags and bunting and everything. There's a savage buzz there, so they're going to be, gunning for Sunday, and they can't wait for it.
I hope you don't think I'm sewing the boot in here, but when you drive through somewhere and they have all the flags out and you're not involved, because I've been in that position several times, it's a tough one. It's a tough one, because all you want to do is be driving through your own village or your own town and see, like, because you can actually, when you see all the flags out and all the signs out and you are involved, I don't know, it does something kind of funny to you. There's nothing like it. And then it's like the grieving element when you're going through another village and you're thinking, Jesus, I'd give my left arm to be there. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, there's 2 things came to my head when you're saying that. Number one, can I close my eyes going through this village, but you'd only crash the car. The second thing was, Balacolla obviously dominated Laois for the last 3 years, and they're super club as well. But they're my next door club, we'll say. So there's 2 ways to get to Port Laois, and I have to go to Port Laois 10 times a week. So there's the motorway or go through Balacolla. So safe to say I didn't see Balacolla for the last 4 years nearly. So it's always the motorway. It was to cost me a fortune.
Just a quick one on your semi-final. I'd say you were cursing Enda Rowland when that puck ended up in the back of the net, but you would know what he's capable of down through the years. Like, he has, like, Jesus, when you're thinking of lads that have a woeful slap of the ball, like, there's no one better probably in the country than him.
Yeah, I'd have him up with the best keepers, top 3 in Ireland for the last 10 years. I know there's some people say it, but I don't think people across the country know actually how good he is. And like, there's times I'd be practicing frees or whatever for Laois before training or after training, and you think that's just the done thing as a free taker, you'd stay on, but you don't see the keeper before and after training doing more than what I'd be doing, and that's what Enda does. And I remember there used to be a saying like, Henry Shefflin's not Henry Shefflin because he practices free, or he's always practicing. He practices because he is Henry Shefflin. It's just the proof is in the pudding with Enda. He just puts in more time than the outfield players. It's as simple as that, and kind of shows in the bigger games, but it shows in every game really. And I knew when he had the wind for that game that it was going to be dangerous, whether it's going to land in the square and someone else is going to pull on it, or he's going to nearly score a goal or a point, which turned out to be a goal. But it's a serious asset for any team, like, and we're lucky to have him in Laois, and we'd only be glad to have him in my club as well.
I was only speaking to him yesterday, actually, just ahead of a piece on Saturday, and just even for any goalkeepers out there, he just said he actually practiced puck outs both ends before the match started, just so he'd know exactly how far his puck out was going. And whenever he hit into the town end, he noticed it was landing down around the 13. So it's gas, like, you have a fair idea of what's going to happen. Like, he knows where he can put it or whatever, and he obviously did put it into that area. I know if I was playing full back, I wouldn't like to see a puck out coming down on top of me anyway. But he's able to mix it long and short as well, isn't he? Like, he can do those boomers 120 yards, but he could put the ball through and I even need 70 yards to someone on the run or whatever as well.
Yeah, and I think that's the biggest difference, Michael. Like, you'd often be at matches there, and the keeper would have one asset, a big long strike of a ball, could go to 100 yards or whatever, but that's fine. An odd player in the club, every fucking club would have that player, but it's the player that can put the ball into your hand from 80 yards on the run in your actual, just in the, so you don't have to break your stride. That's what Enda has, and like, there's not too many has it. Dawn Murphy, Nicky Quaid, and I think Enda Rowland, it's simple as that. There's not too many has the same ability, and then he's as brave as anything as well. Like, he saved, I think, 2 if not 3 point blank saves, just getting out from his line, blocking our guys taking a shot. If it was any other keeper, they would have buried it because the keeper wouldn't have been out as fast. But he just throws himself at a ball as it's being struck. And yeah, so I can't say much more. I think he's top class.
Lads that are watching hurling like week in, week out know how good he is. But like, are we a bit guilty in the GA? Like, should we be seeing a lot more of the McDonagh Cup? Like, should we be seeing a lot more Enda Rowland, yourself, and like my own club, my own Cattle, all these ways? Should there be matches like? Should it be front and centre a lot more? I know the McDonagh Cup final is on or whatever, but I was actually only speaking to Enda about it yesterday. There's a decent wedge of Stapleton Cup games, say, would be broadcast live or whatever, even on telly. Like, does the second tier hurling championship need to have more live matches? Do we need to be seeing more of these players to give them a higher profile, and so we realise just how good they are as well?
Yeah, absolutely. Like, it's, again, first thing comes to my head is like championship soccer in coming up to playoff season every year. Everyone's hooked on it. We're all looking for the Irish talent in it, and it's billed as the most lucrative game in the world. $100 million euro game is the final. There's not much about the Joe McDonagh Cup. Like, can we build the whole, the whole back end? Like, it's very interesting last year with say Laois, Offaly and Carlow. It all came to the last game, but there wasn't a whole lot about it. The final, was it streamed on YouTube? I don't even know. Was it on?
I think it was live, in fairness. I think it was live on an RT1 Saturday night. Yeah, that was the only game that would have been live though, yeah.
Yeah, apologies. But no, I think there's just, look, simple as that. The Tailteann Cup, I even run behind the Tailteann Cup as a Laois fan, football-wise as well, but just in general, because I see it on my socials a lot. I don't see much on the Joe McDonagh. I think there could be a lot more done to promote it. Super games, as you'd know, being an Offaly man, and I'd know being a Laois game, it's very tight. And the counties that are involved are seriously passionate about it. We just mightn't have the same depth to compete with all Ireland stages, but we love it. And nothing can take that away from them. But I definitely think maybe just inspire the future generations, inspire the 18 to 22-year-olds from all the counties to say, there is a reward at the end of this if you really want to pursue the Joe McDonagh or whatever, because like, we're in it this year, and I know for a fact there's Laois players probably considering whether to go in next year because of it. Is the exposure there? Is it worth it? They're going back training in a couple of weeks' time. Like, is there a reward there? Just little things like that. I just think they could acknowledge it a lot more.
Just going back to the Laois final, Ross, obviously Camross on the other side, they obviously took down Ballacalla, Clock Ballacalla, woeful drama in that. Jesus Christ. Just a quick one, actually. As a player, what do you make of penalties? What do you make of going out on penalties? Or what do you make of penalties in general? Win or losing, right or wrong?
Wrong.
Why?
I think they're wrong, yeah. Why? It's a good question. I don't even know I have a great answer here, but it's just, in that match in particular, Michael, it was the worst game you could play a hurling match in, and some of the best strikers in Laois were miss-hitting balls, fumbling balls into the back of the net. So I don't know, was it a fair reflection of, you just want a fair ending to the game. And I know, like saying Keenan struck a ball over the bar. I said that probably sliced off his hurl. Picky scored the goal, the only goal for Ballacalla, and I think it just dribbled in. Willie Dunphy, I just think some of the best strikers in Laois, they were probably at a fair strike at it. I always think a replay is the fairest result comes after 2 full games. Like, fair enough, a good team could be caught by a poor team on one day, but over 2 days, the good team should always win over the 2 legs. So I think that's the fairest way. But of course, the fixture congestion, it doesn't always kind of cater for that. But no, I wouldn't be gone on penalties. I love it from the drama point of view, but I don't know is it the fairest way to go out.
Like, how would you feel? Like, I can't imagine what the Clock Ballacalla lads feel like. You're out of the championship, but to me, you haven't been beaten. Do you know what I mean? If you're beaten on the field of play and the team score, one more point than you, you're beaten and it's fair and square. Whereas, I can't imagine how the Armagh footballers feel the last couple of years, beaten in 2 All-Ireland quarter-finals on penalties and beaten in an Ulster final on penalties. Like, you'd be absolutely sick. But just from a Camera's point of view, they were beaten comprehensively in the county final last year. They've obviously upped a couple of gears. They gave us a bit of a trimming in the Leinster League final this year as well. They've obviously brought through a few guys and got a bit more experience from last year because they're after getting themselves in a really good position now.
Yeah, Camera's are funny. Like, they're obviously one of the best clubs in Laois I think they could be nearly the best club in Laois because for the last 100 years, they're always either competing or winning. But also from underage all the way up to senior, they're always still competing. Like my own club, Rathdowney Earl, we're struggling a little bit underage at the moment. And that we were super for maybe the previous 10 before that. And we go through cycles. I don't think Cameras have a cycle apart from kind of breeding more hurlers. So they're always thereabouts. They're always competing. Play them again in 30 years' time, they'll probably be competing for county titles again. But yeah, another club that has some super talent. I seen Tom Cuddy, a new young lad. I think he's only out in minor, scored 2 goals.
I think he was man of the match the last day. It was one of his first games of adult hurling. Like, that's some going. And
then, like, my probably favourite 2 young lads in Laois at the moment, Mossy Keys and Dan Delaney. I think, like, they're going to be leading Laois for the next 10 years. If Dan Delaney's just nearly like a carbon copy of Zane Keenan to me, he's a beautiful striker off his right, free takers and place balls, and he's out around the half-hour line. And then Mossy Keys is like Messi. Like, I think he's going to win. The game will hinge on him. Their group stage game, Cameras played Abbeyleix. I think there's nearly 10 points in it, but Mossy had 2-5, I think, from play. So I think the game is quite even apart from Mossy Keys to me. I think Abbeyleix don't have a Mossy Keys, and he can make or break Cameras. That's my belief in the game. I hope he doesn't hear this in case he thinks too much of pressure on himself, but he has the ability there to turn a game inside out. He's small and he's savage balance, great striker at both sides, and he takes on his man is his number 1 that he wants to do every time. So, a lot hinges on him, but Cameras as a club, like, they're phenomenal what they're doing. Like, just year in, year out. We played them under 15s the other night. I was at it, and they still have savage hurlers coming through under 15. You just wonder where's the end to them, but they're just isn't, like.
Yeah, sounds like they're a bit like Derry and Offaly, who they just always keep producing. You were just mentioning there about Cameras, the 26 county titles. They done back-to-back in 2017, 2018. Haven't won one since. Were beaten in the final last year. But they're probably narrow favourites going into this game, are they? Just with the fact they took down the champions, I'd say.
Yeah, they are definitely favourites, but it wouldn't be much in it, I'd say. It's just because they took down Ballacalla number 1, but number 2, they bet Abbeyleix fairly convincingly in the group stage. But yeah, they'll be favourites. But I don't think anyone will rule out Abbeyleix that have seen them in the last couple of weeks, especially against our game, because the talent all over, to be honest. And it's going to be an interesting game because you have, I suppose, the aristocrats playing the newcomers, like, and I think it's the first final in 72 years or something with Abbeyleix. So, it's a kind of it's a deadly occasion for Abbeyleix as such. But
You'll be getting out a Dodge to make sure you're not around for it, though.
So I'll be buying Arteta pints there, hoping he signs me in on an old lad contract or something. That's all I'll be doing.
Just a quick one, Ross. Last weekend, there was a good bit of talk about it. There were there was a motion at Special Congress to get rid of the preliminary All-Ireland quarter-finals, but they have I don't know if it's a state of execution or not, but they're definitely in for another year or two at least. You're probably best placed to talk about the preliminary quarter-finals, and that you were the only one of the 8 teams that have competed that actually won their preliminary quarter-final. Just talk to me about that, like looking from afar. Were you hoping that they stayed in? Is it only natural that when Tier 2 counties play Tier 1 that there's going to be a few trimmings along the way, but that year there's an outlier? You were the outlier, obviously. There will always be upsets if you play the games for long enough, but just talk to me about it, like what the preliminary quarterfinals would say mean a hell of a lot to you.
Yeah, absolutely. I got the email through from GPA, and just like you do get some emails there and you just delete them before you look at them, but when I seen this I said I'm going to give it my time, and I did. I sat down, I thought about my answers, and I submitted them, and they were all listened to, and I seen the feedback was they had they linked up some of the answers the players gave, and I'll just feed back some of this to yourself. But basically my thinking of it is the winners should always have an opportunity to play a preliminary quarter-final. The losers of the final, I don't think they should have an opportunity to play it, and I'll explain that. The winners, number one, they're going on to play in that higher level the following year, so why would you take that opportunity from them when they're coming off a win and great confidence and there's a buzz about the county? Give them, supporters and players, the chance to test themselves the following week or 2 weeks, whenever it is, to test themselves. As we've seen, I hate the way we're nearly the one reference. I hope some other team does it after the win, Joe McDonagh, because it feels so long ago and we're kind of hanging on to that win at this stage, it feels. But it happened, and it was probably the best day I had in a Laois jersey. And if that wasn't to be there, I would have had a 10-year Laois career by, I would have felt fairly unfulfilled if I didn't have that super day in Port Laois that day. So I think it'd be a massive loss and pulling the rug from between your legs if they took that from us, the winners of the Joe McDonagh going to preliminary quarter final. But I think on the loser end, I think they should be let just go about their year, just be finished up on that day, because it's difficult. It's difficult to go from losing a final, building up your whole year to lose a final, and then inevitably you're playing probably third place of Munster, and they're I tell you, they're heavy beatings, and it's not a justified result, I don't think, because I think there's probably nearly a 10-point extra loss taken because the interest is gone, Michael. If you lost the county final, you have to go play the losers of Laois in the county final the following week. You have no interest playing it.
Yeah, so and listen, Ross, chances are that there's a couple of little fallouts, and lads have their nose out of joint over not getting on. When you lose a match, that's the nature of it. It's so hard to pick it up. I totally agree with you. I think it's great for the winners. I was only chatting to Tom O'Lally about this recently. It's great for the winners who, as you said, are in the competition next year. They have their panel that year. They might have everyone they want. They mightn't have them next year, but at least they're getting a shot at that given year. And I don't know how many people were in O'Moore Park that day, but it felt like there was about 25,000 there. And it's an occasion. I can't imagine what that does for hurling in the county and for young fellas and young ones in the county as well. So I'd agree with you. Yeah, I don't see why the losers have been rewarded. Really, it feels a bit kind of tokenistic almost.
Yeah, no, it's complete tokenism. They don't want it. The players don't want it. The management don't want it. Even though there might be an odd one come on to socials and say they do, they don't. I can tell you from a player's point of view, I don't want to train on Tuesday after losing a final to go play likes of a Cork. And I know that could be defeatist kind of an attitude, but it's a realism attitude to me. Just forget about the losers, but the winners has to be honoured. Simple as that.
Yeah. I remember you telling me, I think I got you the day after that game, and I remember you telling me that there was young lads on the pitch and they were looking for everything off you. There was one lad even nearly looking for your boxers off you.
You wouldn't want them that day.
But yeah, that was an unbelievable day. Yeah, and even you performed with credit against Tipperary a week later in All-Ireland quarter-final, I'd say.
Yeah, we did. It was actually week on week. So 3 weeks in a row. We won the Joe Mac on the Sunday. Played Tip the following Sunday. We played Dublin the following Sunday, and then the following again was Tip. So we had 3 weeks in a row. I think we lost by 9. We had one lad sent off, and funnily enough, we came closer than Kilkenny did in the final. That's not a dig, but we got a little kick off it, all right. But so we had a super 3 weeks. But again, none of that would have been possible without that opportunity to play that preliminary final, so quarter final. So whoever ever listens to this up above, I hope they do, and just grant it forevermore, and they can change the losers. That's all.
Something you mentioned earlier about the lads going back in a couple of weeks with Laois, and it made me wonder whether you were going back, and I presume you are going back.
You know what to say about presumptions now. I don't know, Michael, is the genuine answer. I actually did talk to Willie maybe last week, and just take a little bit of time. I have a bad knee, I have a Banjack's knee. I have no real cartilage left on one of my knees, so I have to get another injection on that, and that kind of I want to build it up. But I'll see how I am and feeling body and head wise maybe next spring. But at the moment, I'm just going to take a bit of time off to myself.
It's funny. Some older players have set the template, I think, for other lads, and what maybe other lads around their 30s should be doing. Shane O'Donnell played no league last year, would probably be an all-star, or this year I should say, would probably be an all-star. TJ Reid played no league, made his first appearance in the first round of the Leinster Championship. I think when you get to that age, it's all about trying to make sure you're on the pitch. That's my own opinion anyway. So I'd imagine Willie might give you a little bit of rope. Just a couple of comments in there. P-Well74 says, apart from live games, what does RTE do to promote GA, rugby and soccer? Both have magazine programme during the week, but no GA. Is it ever frustrating from a player's point of view that, you know, that maybe we're not promoting our games as much as we should be? Like, I always feel from a player's point of view that they should probably talk where they possibly can to promote the game and promote their county and promote their club, etc. But do you think like the national broadcaster is doing enough, we'll say, to promote the likes of the Joe McDonough, to promote the likes of Lee Shoffley, etc.?
I don't. Simple answer, no. But I also think from the player point of view, like, I know players don't really want to, they don't put themselves forward, and I don't put myself forward. Like, I done this because yourself, but we don't generally do much. We're not loud and proud, or we don't beat the drum on social media. It's like you'd see the soccer players, young lads, they're all on Twitter after any match. Like, you know, if someone put up a tweet after a Laois match, we'd all be there'd be WhatsApp groups created about that fella. So like, it's an attitude in Ireland where like stay within your lanes, maybe within from the player point of view. But if it was more accessible or more approachable from above to create that environment where we could build it, you know, whereas RTs maybe come down to Laois hurlers and do a training night, you know, watch us train and do a few interviews and put it up on a 5-minute segment or something.
Yeah,
you know, that could build it. Something small and simple. That just came out in my head. But there's generally nothing. Like, I'm 11 years at Laois and I captained them twice, and I'd say the max I've seen from exposure was a couple of photo shoots for a Leinster campaign, and like where are they gone to? I don't have a clue. Like, but I just don't see enough. I don't see anything really. Like, we just train away for 6 or 8 months, and you know, there's nothing done about it. Whereas I think they could build it, and it's not about just building it for the sake of it. I think it's all about, like, I'm gone 30 now, so I'm thinking about the next lads coming on and trying to drive on my club a little bit with underage. What can they see? What are they seeing day to day on their social medias? They're not seeing nothing about Laois, so they can go play soccer or rugby or mightn't just do it at all. Whereas when I was growing up, I was immersed with GA. Like, I was obsessed to play club senior at my club and Laois, so I was just immersed in that. But I think there's so many opportunities to go elsewhere now for young lads. They mightn't be so immersed, but can we, you know, immerse them through, you know, subtle manipulation on socials by feeding out things like Laois hurling or Offaly hurling or Joe McDonough is excitable competition. Let's fill out O'Moore Park for this big game and give, you know, free entry to under 18s or something. There can be plenty of initiatives there to just entice them in. There could be more done. I know there's little bits going on, but definitely more should be done.
It's gas. I was chatting to Darragh O'Donovan just for a piece for the paper on Saturday, and I can't forget the two lads' names. We said there were 2 Premier League players, and they basically do a podcast where they chat about the game that's passed and the next game. I can't remember who he said they were, and he just said, like, if that was in the GA, like, you probably ran out of your club and maybe ran out of your county. There's probably a bit of an attitude change needed there. It's almost like, I don't know, you're kind of nearly like public property in a way. Like, I don't know if you even take a pint or whatever, but if lads, like, I remember Brendan Matter saying to me he had I think it was like a pint of Sidona or something down the pub one night when he was playing with Tip, and someone come up to him and was like, what are you doing drinking? You know, it's almost like you're letting people down even by doing anything. It's kind of crazy, really, when you think about it, considering what you're actually doing for those people.
Yeah, I think it's just an Irish mentality, really. We view things fairly negatively straight away. Like if you're seen in the pub, he's drunk, or if you miss the training session, you think he's hungover in bed. And
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't have a proper answer for you, Michael, but it's mountains out of molehills, and yeah, you would be conscious maybe at certain times. Not as me, like Leash hurler, like you go into a pub, you could probably drink your 8 pints, and they'd probably tell you didn't have any pints. But I think, yeah, there is a funny thing. The top players, you'll always see the argument with the rugby guys and the GA guys. You always see that. The boys with rugby, they have their couple of bottles of beer after the games, but that's probably where it's left at, whereas the GA lads have to go mad. But I always remember, though, with soccer, after hurling match release, you're very focused getting your carbs and proteins in and all that, and that's great. But with soccer, I go play a UCD game, soccer, away from home. We get a bus down, just say to Cork, play Cork City. And then as we got on the bus to go back to Dublin, there was 20 Domino's pizzas and 20 cans of 7-Up or Coke at the front seat of the coach as you're getting on. And you pick whatever pizza and can you get on you wanted and go on and eat it on the way up. But just such a simple thing. Like if that photo was out on Twitter with GA, like they'd say you're unprofessional or sack the nutritious. But Jesus, you're after burning so many carbs playing the soccer match, and it was something that you wanted to eat and getting your carbs back in just in an easy way. But that would be probably received so poorly in the GA community. Like they're not taking it seriously.
Yeah. It's gas. I often heard that about soccer, that they can be after a match, they can basically do what they want for that day, because you're after expending so much and burning off so much that you basically need to load back up. So yeah, that would be a good picture, all right, if you said it was the GA bus. Just go through a couple of quick comments. Ross, and I'll let you go then. GA don't do enough to promote the games, lads. I think this is a good comment. Gareth Brooks has played more in Croke Park than 99% of GA players in the last 5 years. Very true, Traumspieler. Richard Hogan just says there about media kind of activity. Nobody wants to put the head above the parapet. Interviews can be taken out of context too. This week's interview is next week's motivation for your opponents. Yeah, I think there's a bit of a trust issue between the media and players and county boards and management that probably needs to be resolved. And we probably need to be, not necessarily myself, but we as a collective probably need to be a bit better in that regard. Ross, last question, and I'll let you go on this. Who are the Laois 2023 county champions come 5 o'clock Sunday?
I'm going to go Camrus by 4.
Camrus by 4, okay. But you think Abbey Leaks are going to be there for the long haul, even if they don't get over the line on Sunday?
I do. I think they're strong all over. They'll have savage enthusiasm. They've as I said, they've end and Oisin and Carl kind of at the back to kind of man the fort a bit. So I think they're going to be thereabouts. And as I said, I think a lot comes down to Mossy Keys. If he's flying, Camrus will get the win. If he's not flying, it's going to be kind of a very even game. And I think it can go either way then.
Great stuff. Ross, thanks a million for your time. And hopefully next spring we'll see you back in a Laois jersey with a bit of luck.
Yeah, thanks very much, Michael. All the best, yeah.
Cheers, Ross. Talk to you soon. Bye. Great to have Ross King there, as honest and forthright as he always is. And just fly through a couple of little remaining games that we have. Galway Senior Football Championship quarter final. So there was another score difference controversy simmering in the Galway Senior Football Championship, where the first of a number of appeals against the old criteria has been rejected by the Connacht Council. So St. Michael's are said to be considering their options after they unsuccessfully contested finishing last in Group 3, having finished on 3 points, as did Toom Stars and Dunmore McHale's above them. St. Michael's argued the new score difference rule should have applied as it did in the Galway Senior Hurling Championship. So it's a bit mad in Galway. It seems the new scoring difference rules apply in the Hurling Championship, but not the Football Championship. So the new rule restricts score difference to the games between 3 or more teams finishing on the same number of points, whereas the old rule applies to all games in the group. Were the new score difference criteria in operation, St. Michael's would have finished in 3rd place and a preliminary quarter-final instead of 5th. And so they would have leapfrogged Toom Stars and Dunmore McHale's, and they would have avoided the possibility of relegation as well. So the quarterfinals this weekend are Unspadale against Cardiff-Strand, St. James's against Mount Bellew Mylock, Clare Galway against Milltown. Sorry, they're not the quarterfinals, they're the last round of group games, I think. Corofin against Toom Stars and Michael against Salt Hill Knocknacarra. Sorry, they are the quarterfinals, and fairly tasty ones at that. Probably last year's finalists, Salt Hill Knocknacarra, against Michael, who are obviously the defending champions. They are that's probably the tastiest of those quarterfinal games. The semi-finals are also on in Roscommon. Traditional powerhouse St. Bridget's face off against Roscommon Gales. And in the other semi-final, you have Boyle against Porrick Pierces. Interesting, Strokestown, who were winners last year, I think, they were in a relegation battle. And that seems to be a general theme across the country. Of Kilruan, who were hurling champions in Tip last year, they were in a relegation battle. And there's another big powerhouse facing the possibility of relegation, and that is in Meath, where Screen face off against Moynalvey, a relegation final in inverted commas in Walterstown at 11:15 on Sunday morning. I know the county final is on TV that day at 2:15 in Park Tolchin, but playing a relegation final on a Sunday morning at 11:15, I think, leaves a lot to be desired. Screen have never been relegated from the Senior Football Championship. They're up there, the guts of 90 years. Legends like Colin O'Rourke, Liam Hayes, Trevor Giles, John McDermott, all from Screen. And I think Screen are the only club in Meath that have had representation on every one of Meath's All-Ireland wins. So that's a huge game there. And they don't want to follow the fate of the likes of Glen Rovers, Clare Castle and Rathnore, who probably had combined about 260 years at senior level, and they were all relegated this year. So Screen will be hoping to book that trend. In the senior final that's on TV, as I said, Rathote against Summerhill. So Rathote are going for 4 and 5 years, and they've a load of dual players that were involved in the hurling semi-final last weekend. Semi-finals also in Monaghan this weekend. You have Carduff against Scottstown and Inishkeen against Clontibberet O'Neills. The semi-finals in Wexford as well. Castletown against Gusran O'Reilly's and Killenairn against Shelmaliers. Semi-finals in Wicklow also. Tinahely against Rathnew, and you have Arklow Geraldines Ballymoney against Blessington. And in Derry, you have the quarterfinals, Lavey against Sean O'Leary Newbridge. The Glen, who were obviously reigning Ulster champions and unlucky All-Ireland runners-up, shall we say, they're facing off against Kilray. Schlocknail against Balahi, and you have O'Donovan Rossa against Ballinascreen. In Armagh, you also have the semi-finals there, where it's Clonairin against Clonnagal. So bragging rights and a place in the Armagh Championship decider are up for grabs when Lurgan rivals Clonairin and Clonnagal clash in the first of the Orchard County semi-finals on Saturday, with 14 county titles between them. The clans are well ahead of their neighbours, but their most recent success was in 1994, while the third of Clonairin's crowns was just 2 years ago. So bragging rights within a town, always a lot to play for there. The other semi-final, Crossmaglen Rangers will be heavy enough favourites to beat Madden. Last couple, just fly through Cork really, really quickly. Actually, the Leitrim final is on TV at the weekend as well. That's on at 4 o'clock. It's a repeat of last year's final. It's Mohill against St Mary's. That'll be an interesting game on TG Carter. And then you have the Bond Secures Cork Premier Senior Football Championship semi-finals, Nemo Rangers against Duhallow, and you have St Finbarrs against Castlehaven. So St Finbarrs and Cork midfielder Ian Maguire have spoken candidly about his side's determination to bounce back from last year's final disappointment as they prepare for Sunday's semi-final joust with old rivals Castlehaven. Maguire just said, "What we believe gives us the edge is that we've been there before. We're a very experienced team, but we also have a new influx of young players like Ethan Toomey, William Buckley, Brian Hayes, just different players that have been added to the panel and make a huge difference. All very fine hurlers as well, obviously. But ultimately, when you're in the final four like this, in terms of the edge, it's hard to put a finger on it because every team probably has their own unique reasons why they think they have an edge. Just fly through a couple of comments, really. Is that a repeat of last year's football final in Meath? I'm fairly sure it is, but it is not Gillespie versus Brady 2 because David Brady's no longer involved with Rathote. That's all for today's show, folks. I'm going to go and lie down now for a while after presenting a lot of the show by myself, but we will have the Saint will be back on Sunday, no doubt, or on Monday for Monday's show to go through all the action, and we will chat to you all then. Thanks very much for joining us, folks, and we'll see you on Monday.